1. Historical background in the United States, Northern abolitionists were able to speak out against slavery in public. The Spanish colony of Cuba was different. With no part of the island free of slavery, censorship was harsh and penalties severe. The most daring abolitionists were poets who could veil their work with metaphors. Of these, the boldest was a young woman named Gertrudis Gomez de Avellaneda. Her childhood nickname was Chula. Baita for tears or ETR. Books are door-shaped portals carrying me across oceans and centuries, helping me feel less alone. But my mother believes that girls who read too much are unladylike and ugly, so my father's books are locked in a clear glass cabinet. I gaze at enticing covers and mysterious titles, but I am rarely permitted to touch the enchantment of words. Poems, stories, plays, all are forbidden. Girls are not supposed to think, but as soon as my eager mind begins to race, free thoughts rush in to replace the trapped ones. I imagine distant times and faraway places. Ghosts, vampires, ancient warriors. Fantasy moves into the tangled maze of lonely confusion. Secretly, I open an invisible book in my mind. Through its magical door shape into a universe of dangerous villains and breathtaking heroes. Many of the heroes are men and boys, but some are girls so tall, strong and clever that they rescue other children from monsters. My big sister tells bizarre fantasy tales, acting them out in whispers beneath a jungle of leaves in the shady garden. Her stories of powerful giants and terrifying beasts turn the evening into a forest of secrets. I leave the garden feeling as if I have traveled to a distant land. If only our real lives could be as heroic as her tales of courageous giants 100 heads high. I've trained my little brother to be a brave smuggler of words. He hides his schoolbooks under my embroidery hoop, one forbidden volume at a time, so that our frowning mother and scolding stepfather hardly ever grow suspicious. When no one is looking, I seize one of Manuel's books and flee to the garden, where words glitter and glow in starlight. I am 13 now, so close to the age of forced marriage that invented worlds made of words are my only comfort. I try to explain my fear of a loveless wedding to Mama, but her mind is busy with greedy visions. If only she could dream of her own future instead of mine. 13. It is the age for dreams of sparkling jewels and silken gowns in elegant ballrooms. Not hideous fantasies about ferocious beasts. Everyone knows that girls who read and write too much are unattractive. Men want quiet females who listen, not loud ones who offer opinions. 13 is the age for dreams of changing the world by freeing my own heart. 13 is a barefoot rider on a naturally graceful horse, with no fierce spurs, heavy saddle, iron bit, or vicious reins to control the mouth and the mind. People assume that men make all the rules, but sometimes mothers are the ones who command girls to be quiet while they arrange for us to be sold like oxen or mules. I feel like a new person when I play make-believe games in the garden, inventing tales of monsters and heroes. Mama commands me to hush, and my stepfather grumbles, so I try to be quiet, but silence feels like an endless echoing hallway of smooth shiny mirrors that reflect my ragged impatience. I end up growling and roaring like a beast. Why does my stubborn daughter bellow and howl each time I tell her to stop being so loud and so rude? I'm just doing my motherly duty. Why can't she listen to a voice of sensible reason? Doesn't she see that her future is my future, and little Manuel's? Without Chula's help in achieving a successful marriage for herself, no one in this family will ever possess the sheer power of great wealth. On lonely nights, I remember my father, who allowed me to read as much as I wanted. While he was alive, I felt like my brother's equal. I felt human. I never had to challenge absurd rules by smashing a glass bookcase, just to steal a glance at hidden pages. Now, when Mama catches me with a book in my hands and shards of glass on my shoes, she sends me to my silent room, where I spend quiet hours remembering the freedom to read. Shortly before my birth, Papa saw the head of a rebellious slave paraded on a stake. The poor man's hands were nailed to trees, his limbs tumbled outside churchyard gates. The sight made Papa furious. He was a soldier, but he'd learned to detest violence, growing ill with sorrow each time he heard rumors of warfare. Without slavery, he concluded, there would be no more fighting, no anger or dread. He dreamed of returning to his birthplace in Spain. And in preparation, he freed our old cook, paying her a fair wage instead of keeping her in chains. I've been the only cook, maid, seamstress, gardener, and nanny in this family for at least 1,000 years. Via, oh well, it certainly feels like 1,000, even if it's only 30 or 40. Some years feel so much longer than others, slower, deeper, more powerful. The year when Chula first began telling me her far-fetched stories was one of those times. She was only 9, now we sit together often, dreaming of heroic giants who can defeat blood-sucking vampires. When Caridad and I peer through the bars of a window, we see weary slave girls trudging along the rough cobblestone street, with enormous baskets of pineapples and coconuts balanced on their heads. Sometimes I feel as if I can trade my thoughts for theirs. Are we really so different, with our heavy array of visible and invisible burdens? When fever took Papa, I folded my sorrow into words, one tiny leaf of paper, my first raging poem of loss. Now each glimpse of a slave girl's suffering turns into one more hidden verse. Mama does not permit me to attend school like Manuel, so a tutor comes to the house, instructing me in music and art. For lessons in embroidery and saints' lives, I go to the convent, where veiled nuns permit me to read mysterious tales of hermits, martyrs, and beasts, like the story about Santa Margarita, who was swallowed by a dragon. Each day, after my lessons, the nuns let me visit their marvelous library, where I feel as if I have entered heaven on earth. The poems Chula recites fall onto my ears like shooting stars or flowers in a storm wind, plummeting toward earth instead of drifting. Each verse is an arrow piercing my past, the years of bondage that prevented me from learning to read while I was young. Chula says it's never too late, but I'm old, and I'm so very tired, and I have too much work. We read all manner of verse and prose forbidden to other females. For Chula to gain the freedom to enjoy unlimited reading later in life, she will have to take vows and join us. Beyond these common gates, books are locked away and men hold the keys. For now, Chula seems content to roam our peaceful library, growing breathless with the excitement of a youthful mind's natural curiosity. In a dusty corner of the common library, I discovered the banned books of José María Heredia, a rebel poet, an abolitionist and independentista who was forced into exile. His verses show that he believes in Cuba's freedom from Spain, as well as liberty for slaves. When I take the verses home to Caridad, she weeps. I cannot tell if her tears pour from a fountain of hope for the unknowable future or sorrows left over from an unchangeable past. Certain poems help me feel young instead of old, powerful instead of weak, brave instead of fearful. Their words are like wings, helping me fly away from this kitchen, this mop, these filthy pots and pans, my endless chores. Heredia's verses are banned by the crown, not the church, so we feel free to read them. We knew him well. He was already a poet while he was just a young boy. Some people are born with words flowing in their veins. At 15, Heredia wrote a play. At 19, he became a member of Los Soles y Rayos, the Sons and Rays of Bolivar, a secret society of poets and artists who hoped to establish a democratic nation of equals, with no masters or slaves. And one vote per man, dark or light. I will never grow tired of exploring Heredia's poetry. Here is a verse about being at sea alone in a storm. And here is one about hiking beside an immense waterfall called Niagara. And listen to this poem about refusing to accept the existence of slavery and refusing to see all of nature as good and beautiful, with the sole exception of human nature. Heredia is pale and has always been free, just like Chula. Somehow, with words from wild poems floating all around me, I feel certain that words can be as human as people, alive with the breath of compassion. Whispered words about the Sons and Rays continue to fascinate me. The nuns tell me that Heredia's secret society had even designed a flag, deep blue, with a gold sun at the center, and a human face on the sun, to remind us that people can glow. Each ray of the round sun is just a narrow sliver, but together all the tiny rays join to release a single enormous horizon of light. Heredia's poems haunt me. From my room, I watch the march of chained slave children as they pass beyond the carved wooden bars of my window. In the kitchen, I listen to the knife beat spoon beat pounding songs of Caridad. Then I eat my guilty dinner, wondering how many slaves Mama will buy with the money she gains by marrying me to the highest bidder. At night, the view from my window changes. Horses gallop along the cobblestones. There are gunshots and screams. Will there be another rebellion with heads paraded on stakes and hands nailed to trees? When no one is watching, I carry a basket of fruit on my head, just to find out how it feels to need balance. I chop an onion, stir a soup, sweep a floor, frown, then fill the air of the garden with Heredia's floating rhymes, and soon I'm reciting a few poems of my own, while Caridad listens beneath the silent moon and stars. Visions. The night is filled with fierce spirits and gentle ones. Invisible beings spin and moan. Floor, ceiling, and walls whisper, wail, and shout. Phantoms beg me to transform my strained dreams into stories. Words burst and fly past trees in the garden. I rise up out of a nightmare and grasp a feather pen, feeling winged. Manuel feather pens, flowing ink, and weightless paper, they mean nothing at all to me. So I give them away to my sister, who claims she feels trapped and can free herself only with words. When we visit my grandfather on his sugar plantation, I see how luxurious my mother's childhood must have been, surrounded by beautiful emerald green sugar fields harvested by row after row of sweating slaves. How can one place be so lovely and so sorrowful all at the same time? My grandfather speaks of the various noblemen he might select for me next year, when I reach the dreaded age of 14. Twice, my mother defied her father in order to marry for love, but now she expects me to regain her place in my grandfather's will by marrying a stranger. In exchange for gold. On our last day in the countryside, my grandfather gives me a cruel gift, a yellow songbird flapping helplessly inside a delicate bamboo cage. The captive bird's graceful wings are useless. All it can do is flutter and sing. As ATSBT. My pen is empty. I cannot write. All I do is watch my caged goldfinch and listen to his brave little song. I have discovered injustice, but what good is a witness who cannot testify? I am silent. Useless. My voice has vanished. Will I ever learn how to sing on paper? My indoor world of walls grows so quiet that I have to create my own noise. I recite Heredia's poems of justice out loud. Mama calls me a land of extremes. My stepfather covers his ears. Did they imagine that I enjoy swaying back and forth between moods of flame and ice? If only I could be calm, like my bird, who waits all night for morning sun. If only I could be someone else. Opinions, ideas, possibilities, so many. How can I choose? Between bursts of lightning swift energy, I enjoy peaceful moments when the whole world seems to be a flowing river of verse and all I have to do is learn how to swim. During those times, I find it so easy to forget that I'm just a girl who is expected to live without thoughts. I speak my mind, and then I have to apologize to Mama over and over, always the same sincere apology. I really am sorry, so sorry that I'm not the sort of daughter my mother can love. When she catches me writing, she calls me sinful, joker, crazy, a manly girl, a mad woman, monstrous. She warns me that no rich man will ever fall in love with a girl who loves books, but I don't care. I will never marry a man who thinks girls should be stupid. Chula comes to us with her dilemma. Her choices are narrow. In a mother's eyes, she can be only a monster of defiance or an angel of obedience, nothing in between. So we sent her to the library, a safe place to heal and dream. Each time I read the freedom verses of Heredia, I become more and more aware of poor old Caridad's horrifying youth. She was a slave. She belonged to my family. There is nothing I can do to give back those lost years, but I do have a voice. I can speak of her sorrows. I study verses with a drumbeat rhythm like pounding music. Other poems are sea waves, calm and soothing. Just as often, poetry is a free dance of birds in air swooping and dipping in surprising directions. I discover a mystery in each verse, the stillness between words. Counted lines of sorrow for a sonnet, rapidly rhymed beats of fury. My own verses soon flow, shrieking and groaning from my smuggled pen. I walk with empty hands, letting the rhythm of footsteps turn into silence or birdsong. I never know which to expect. Time and distance vanish. I feel lopsided like a tree that reaches towards sunlight rising from a rooted forest of buried truths. I feel the mysterious power of growth. When I ask Caridad about her childhood, she will not answer. It is as if she owns a hidden gift that she refuses to share. I can't really blame her. I imagine that in her place, I would keep my own outraged treasury of secrets. Just think how many papery secrets I already own. Am I crazy, foolish, confused? Do any of my poems make sense? I burn my verses in the same oven where Caridad bakes spicy cakes before decorating them with sweet coconut frosting. My brother gives me more of his enchanted paper, but I tell him the magic has vanished. The kitchen air grows thick with soot and smoke, the remains of my words inhaled as we breathe the ashes of my poems. I don't know how to destroy the invisible part of a verse. We seek a way to cheer Chula. Caring for others would help her forget her own troubles, so we remind her that treating other people the way she hopes to be treated is God's golden rule. Soon she is dreaming of 1,000 ways to help beggars, lepers, the blind. But her most original idea is the one she finally chooses, an entertaining and educational theatre for orphans. Silenced, censored, ignored. Home is a place of mute limitations, but at the convent orphanage, far from my mother, I can shout and sing. Here, no one calls me professor when I quote a wise poem, or atheist, if question traditional ways. In the company of orphans, I feel free of my family's impossible expectations. Manuel is my chaperone, walking me back and forth to the orphanage. Without a brother to escort me, I would truly feel imprisoned. I'm glad that I'm not a real orphan, and I do love my mother, I do, but I wish she could understand my despair. Why can't she see that no two people are exactly alike? Our hearts and minds are all different, only our dreams share this same desperate need to rise and soar. At the Orphan Theatre, my plays about evil vampires and heroic giants are not considered suitable by the nuns, who must endure their own mute limitations. So I learned to write quiet scenes about ordinary places and real people. Even without fantasy, my words grow and change into something truly inventive because here, all the actors are lonely children who know how to create their own magic. At home, I sing and hum, preparing for the next day's rehearsal. In the kitchen, Caridad's cakes bring memories of the way I used to cook with her when I was little. Mama expected a solemn kitchen, but Caridad let me sing while I stirred. When the cakes were done, we both ate our fill, but the cook and I had to sit at separate tables in different rooms. When I was young, ran away over and over, but slave hunters always caught me and brought me back to this house. Now, when Chula asks why I stayed here after her father finally freed me, I have no answer, just the memory of fear. Poetry is all I have to give. I don't know any other way to help. Even though Caridad is busy in the kitchen, I feel certain that she listens as she swirls her copper spoon through a bubbling stew. Words find their own way into the shared rhythms of our separate lives. I continue to dream up my own set of rules, for life, for poetry, for the orphan theatre. In my plays, all are equal. Each orphan receives a speaking role, because every child has a voice that must be heard, even if adults only listen while children are perched on a stiff wooden stage, chirping like new-hatched birds that have not yet learned how to sing. Chula's theatre is merciful. It helps us forget who we are. We stitch costumes of scraps, decorated with beads of laughter. We paint wooden sunsets in the false fronts of imaginary houses. Each swoop of a paintbrush turns into our own magical dance of celebration. The orphans speak in unique ways, no two alike. Some use silence, the visible language of brooding eyes. Others dream up new words born of boredom or humor. The shy ones offer nothing but shrugs and gestures, a ballet of graceful hands. My own voice bursts like an ember, releasing wild sparks of surprise. Manuel at home in the shadowy garden, my sister performs a secret play, a dangerous one, El Campesino Espantado, the frightened country boy, written by Heredia when he was only 15. It's a funny play, yet serious too, the tale of a farm boy who visits a crowded city. When a coachman wants payment for a carriage ride, the country boy is shocked, because he is accustomed to wagon rides that are freely given by lonely farmers, who are eager to chat on and on about cows, chickens, weather, and the phases of the mysterious moon. In the city, the country boy tries to help a runaway slave, but his efforts fail, and both he and the slave are hunted and punished. Later, the country boy is robbed and falsely accused of murder. In the end, he returns to his farm, where all the snorting, clucking, bleating animals make so much more sense than people. The play is clearly a tale of injustice. I fear for my sister and for our whole family. If Chula is caught reciting the rebel poems of Heredia, will we all be arrested and tortured? After the final meal of the day, I sit on a bench in the garden, where my thoughts are my own until Chula's young voice invades them. While I listen to her play acted tales of injustice, I begin to feel that maybe I should run free just one more time before this entire household is punished. I'm tired of being told that my feelings are too wild. I argue with Manuel when he says I'm too bold. Why shouldn't hilarious scenes make me dizzy with laughter, unfair ones hurl me into rage, and sad ones fill me with grief for the imagined suffering of fictional characters? I can't help plunging into the heart of each line just as thoroughly as if all the dreams and disappointments were my own. We feel transformed. Each word of each play helps us imagine distant lives. Scenes that make the nuns cry leave us smiling behind our veiled curtain of wishes. We long to try new tales, even the forbidden ones about giants and vampires with unnatural skills. We are always eager to play any role that contains Chula's magic. I long to write like Heredia, but what do I know of great cities and the wide lives of men? I cannot write panoramas of history. My narrow view is framed by rigid window bars and the songs of one tiny caged bird. I'm just a silence girl. My stories are simple tales of emotion. Will my words always be glowing coals instead of leaping flames? There is an opening in the orphanage wall. On a revolving wooden shelf, gifts from the outside world are received. Each time the shelf spins, I rush to see the surprises. Townsfolk donate cakes, coins, and clothing, small gifts that twirl into this isolated orphanage from beyond the high wall of carved stone. One day, the spinning shelf screams and I'm the first to arrive. I discover an infant, squirming and squalling on the polished circle of time-smooth wood. The shrieking baby's arrival is eerie. It seems unnatural, until I peer through the gap in the wall and see a girl around my own age. She is elegantly dressed, but she weeps like a beggar as she rushes away. When she glances back over her silk-clad shoulder, her face is as pale as a cloud. She lifts a finger to her lips, and I understand that she is asking me to keep a secret. She has abandoned her own newborn infant. Why? How? I seize the baby and hold him close. He falls silent, breathing against me. When I gaze down at his black eyes and warm cinnamon-hued skin, I can hear a story unfolding. The mother looked Spanish. The father must be African. This child was abandoned simply because he is brown. Now that Chula knows why most of the orphans are given to us, she is desolate. How can it be? She wants to know if the baby's parents are in love. Is the father a freed man or a slave? She asks the same questions over and over, and we give the same answer, our true one, we don't know. All we know is that most of the orphans we care for are not really orphans, but children with living parents who reject them out of ignorant fear. So many people have not yet learned that souls have no color and can never be owned. Where can put this mountain of grief and rage? Sadness needs a papery home, but my borrowed feather pen is not skillful enough to tell such a horrible true tale. It is a story far more monstrous than any gruesome legend of vampires or werewolves. Part 3. With the moon as my audience, I whisper the tragedy of abandoned babies in every form I can imagine, rhymed and free verse, a story, an essay, a play. But my words are never strong enough or public enough to bring justice for brown orphans. If I ever find the courage to reveal their secret openly, will readers be brave enough to listen? The only thing I can change is myself. There is no way to alter the orphan's loss, or my own sorrowful home. 14 is such a cruel birthday. My mother and grandfather are already planning to auction me away to the highest bidding rich man. The older Chula grows, the more outcast she feels, complaining that I permit her only to spend time with her little brother. She insists that she needs friends, so invite her cousin Rosa and an acquaintance named Lola, so that all three girls can laugh, sing, play the piano, and practice flirtatious dance steps. When hear the girls whispering and giggling, I feel a burst of relief, knowing there is still a chance that my strange daughter might turn out to be normal. The human mind is a garden. Stories are tiny seeds that grow, yet each evening, we inhale the ash from my charred forest of pages. Burning the poems, and pretending that I've lost all interest in books, is the only way to keep peace in my mother's angry presence. Now, when she calls me professora, I smile and claim that I am not smart and plain, like a female professor. If she calls me masculine, I wear my best lace, flutter a flowery silk fan, and keep myself silent, wishing that I could openly state my truth. I don't want to be a man. Just a woman with a voice. Some of Chula's verses don't rhyme, and there are oddly paired images, butterflies in cemeteries, and swans that float on lakes of sadness. Chula writes about equality for slaves and equality for women. When she writes about love, her words are knives that pierce my future. If women gain the freedom to choose their own husbands, will any pretty girl ever choose me? Freely, part of life, secret words, give, future, lively, love, equality. The slivers of talk I overhear in this smoky kitchen are just as sour sweet as the peel of an orange left behind, after everyone else has eaten. I stay where I am for a long time, nibbling the harsh fruit, tasting the ashes of poems. I have not forgotten how it feels to be 14 and lonely, so I must speak to my father soon, very soon. Chula needs a wealthy husband now, right now, before she tries to choose her own, the way I did, without any regard for her family's finances. I feel at home, choosing to live inside my own imagination, savage and natural, yet I also long to be honest about my desire to love and be loved. Am an unearthly creature, part vampire, part werewolf, Or perhaps, as Mama accuses, poetry is my beastly mind's only curse. Honest, kind, and courageous. Those are the charming qualities Chula begs her grandfather to choose when he selects her husband. But he has already decided. He's promised Chula's hand to the most powerful man in town, a rich merchant who won't refuse such a beautiful young wife, along with a generous dowry. My father offers in exchange for the tidy arrangement. My 2 love marriages are proof that romance alone cannot buy joy. My first husband died too soon, and the second spends all his time far from home, as if to avoid Chula's unhappiness, and my own. The sun is a ghost. My feelings are phantoms. Suddenly, I am engaged to a stranger. No natural words are enormous enough to describe the gigantic sky where I would escape if I could fly. I strive to imagine that my profitable marriage will turn out to be romantic, an adventure, not a business deal, not this hard, metallic, commercial transfer of female merchandise. Chula comes to us with her sorrow, but this time we cannot help her. If everyone obeyed God's golden rule, then young girls would be the ones to choose suitably greedy wives for arrogant old men. How swiftly the laws about marriage would change. But this rough world prefers laws soaked in dirt, not airy ones drenched in clear light. Today I released my caged goldfinch. Mama scolded me bitterly, but I do not care, because today one small, winged creature has finally learned how to fly. As I gaze up at glowing sun rays, I wonder how long it will be until I grow brave enough to follow the little birds. Soaring pathway Enna. Do free birds and beasts ever lie awake, troubled by questions of justice? At bedtime, I struggle to stop thinking of bondage and liberty, cruelty and kindness, wrong and right. But fierce cries and clattering hoofbeats from the cobblestone street beyond my barred window rattle into my mind like drumbeats of wildly pounding questions. I am engaged to a slave owner. How does he treat his slaves, and how will he treat a newly purchased wife? Chula joins me, and we sit in the smoky kitchen, murmuring questions without answers. Will the rebels ever win? Is it possible that someday slaves will be free, and kings will vanish, and everyone will vote, even women? Secret conversations with Caridad leave me feeling hopeful. But after the rebels have once again been defeated, I slip back down to my usual gloomy thoughts, followed by music and noise with Rosa and Lola, parties, dances, and strolls around the plaza. But what use are the admiring gazes of gallant young men when I'm already promised to a stranger? Boys lose interest in me once they hear my modern opinions. I need to spend time with people who agree with me about freedom for all. Books can no longer be my only portals. Manuel, always curious, helps me venture along narrow alleyways to secret tertulias, band meetings where rebel poets recite their own dangerous verses, along with the smuggled poetry of Heredia, brave, forbidden poems, powerful ones, verses that burst with possibilities. Will I ever be bold enough to read my own rhymes out loud, in public? I risk my life for Chula's love of verse. Heredia is not just an abolitionist, but an independista, promoting the independence of Cuba. My sister and I could be charged with treason, arrest, torture, exile, even execution. We risk everything, all for the crime of listening to poems. But Heredia has influenced me as much as Chula. Lacking her talent for flowery words, I hope to work in some other way as a champion of the twin causes, freedom for slaves, and freedom from kings. Chula has a third cause, all her own. No one agrees, not even the rebels. If women could choose their own husbands, and vote, and be elected, wouldn't their sweet natures grow just as rude and unruly, as men's? My life is a balancing act as dangerous as any carnival performance. I roam back and forth between band poetry readings, elegant parties, Caridad's kitchen, the nun's library, and my own exhilarating orphan theatre. With my thoughts forced into secrecy, I have entered a phase of legends. The orphans perform plays inspired by folktales, such a wonderful way to hide my true meanings. There is one tale about an ugly vulture with a kind heart, and another about a tiny rabbit who dreams of growing up to be as strong and brave as a lion, and there is the wistful tale of an earthbound turtle who believes he can learn how to fly. Perhaps I'm as foolish as that clumsy old turtle, but I do believe that someday silence words will rise and glide. Chula's legends about snakes terrify us. A huge serpent chants lullabies so sweet that birds in flight fall asleep and tumble down from the sky. Yet somehow, at the same time, that same legend also satisfies us, because in the end, the snake is transformed into a skinny palm tree with no voice at all. In Chula's legends, gentle creatures are always rewarded by speaking, while cruel ones are punished with silence. I think of my feather pen as something magical that still belongs to a wing. All I need is paper, ink, and the courage to let wild words soar. Chula performs her secret plays in the garden, just for me. The words are so quiet that I have to listen with all my heart, not just my ears. The tale of the turtle is my favorite. If such a slow, awkward creature can hope to grow swift wings, then I can at least try to move my own two weary human legs. Caridad is gone. She quit her job and fled without a farewell, leaving nothing but a wordless mist of hope. Mama falls into a rage, blaming me, just as she blames me for so much, her nerves, her headaches, her fear that I will gain such a bold reputation that the fiancé I've never seen will reject me before our first meeting. None of that matters. All I can think of is dear Caridad in bright air, soaring. My selfish daughter's punishment for talking nonsense to the old cook will be cooking. As soon as Chula marries, her husband will have to buy me a new cook, 2 maids, a gardener, a fine team of horses, a coachman, and a stable boy. In the meantime, let Chula stew beans and scrub pots. Maybe the grit and filth of a kitchen will remind her that food, firewood, and a respectable place in society are not free. I do not know where I'll go, but I do know the words help me flee. My name has always meant charity, such a common name for slaves, who receive no charity at all. But I did. First I received freedom papers, and now, so late in life, I've received this winged turtle liberty of the mind, a freedom so huge that it can never be crowded onto anything as small and fragile as a page. I seize the kitchen as my own. Chop, stir, scribble. My punishment is a blessing of privacy. Mama hardly ever steps into the smoke, so I feel free to keep my new pages, instead of feeding them to hungry flames. When I ask my brother for help, he agrees to hide my words in his room. If Mama finds the bundles of paper, Manuel can pretend that my legends are his. No one ever objects to strange tales written by a boy. Caridad's act of independence inspires me, just as my turtle tale influenced her. When I finally meet the gentleman I'm expected to marry, he speaks of nothing but mansions and jewels, promising that we will travel to Paris, attend dances, wear furs. I smile politely, but a secret verse grows in my mind, telling me to run, join the nuns, flee to the library, open my own book-shaped portal to an imaginary world of freedom. My wedding day is still many long months away, so I shove all fear out of my mind, determined to enjoy my new cooking duties, as well as the library, orphanage, poetry, and friendly visits with Rosa and Lola. Every day, I imagine the true love that my two girlfriends discuss with such joy, yet I have no idea what the word dama really means. When Rosa introduces me to a boy called Loinaz, I imagine that we are in love. Sweaty hands, tumbling heartbeats, trembling voices. If this is Ama, then why? Does it feel just as troubling as a simple case of youthful shyness? Friendship, that is all I want from Loinaz. All these other turbulent feelings are too mysterious. I'm too young for love, too confused for marriage. Lola has eloped. Rosa blames me for daring to speak in praise of a future when women will be able to choose marriages based on love. I don't care if I'm blamed. One more caged bird has escaped. Lola is pale and her husband is dark, but love has no limits, of that much I feel certain. Rosa is so envious that she chooses to betray my trust. Like a spy, she takes her vicious gossip to Mama, reporting my harmless flirtations with Loinaz. I am accused of improper behavior. Rosa has transformed our friendship into cruelty. Now she is suddenly engaged to Loinaz, while I must face Mama's fury. My punishment is drastic. The marriage will be rushed. Only 90 days of freedom remain. 90 days. Nothing. No one can help me. Lamb lost. I can't do it. I won't pretend to love a stranger. I will not marry a bank account instead of a human. My daughter is a clever girl, but she is selfish and thinks only of her own fantasies. She has made such a show of flirting with a boy who has nothing at all to offer. No money, no property, no fame. As soon as Chula is profitably married, her wild tantrums, these ridiculous pleas for freedom, will end. All our lives will be peaceful and prosperous. I am alone and my heart is my own. Loneliness, solitude. The first is a curse, the second a blessing. I would rather be a hermit than live with a stranger who would make me feel even more lonely than when I am truly. Monster, bookworm, unnatural, professor, genius, atheist. The insults my mother screeches have no limit. Atheist, no. Love is God's boldest creation. Surely, angels on clouds must gaze down and smile each time a girl on earth refuses a marriage based on love's absence.